If folks would like to grab a seat, we'll get started just about on time. Thanks so much for being here. I think we've got seats for everyone, but if there's a seat next to you, go ahead and raise your hand so folks can find those. Excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Kerry Timchuk, Executive Director here at the Oregon Historical Society. And it's my privilege to welcome you today as we commemorate the 10th anniversary of Min Yasui Day. A little round of applause for the 10th anniversary. I think it's important to remember that while today does mark that 10th anniversary, individuals have been doing the work recognized on this day for much more than a single decade. Remembering and reflecting on the legacy of Min Yasui's actions here in Portland 86 years ago today, when he broke curfew and walked into a police station and basically said, "Arrest me." Remembering that, and those like him, before and since, who have stood up for our constitutional rights, is apt at any time, but perhaps especially in this year, on this day, in this year when we're marking the 250th anniversary of America's founding. Indeed, my team and I here at OHS made a specific choice to feature this incredible exhibit, the Yasui Family American Story, in this year. There are some who think that the only patriotic way to commemorate the 250th anniversary is to believe that in the search for a more perfect union, America has never made a mistake, that we've never taken wrong turns. Here at OHS, however, we believe that in this year and every year, history must be accurately told. We designed the exhibition not so that visitors leave mourning for Oregon or for the United States. Rather, we hope they leave proud of the many Americans who stood against injustice and committed to ensuring that nothing like it will ever happen again. I can say it no more eloquently than Min Yasui himself, whose words are included in this exhibit. And he said this: "If we believe in America, if we believe in equal democracy, if we believe in law and justice, then each of us, when we see or believe such errors are being made, have an obligation to make every effort to correct such mistakes." Those were the words of Min Yasui. Special thanks to our partners in this exhibition, the Yasui family, the Japanese American Museum of Oregon, the Min Yasui Legacy Project, and all those who have helped us to preserve and share a story that is both remarkable and typically American. And it's fitting that we begin today to hear from the individual who signed the legislation creating Min Yasui Day. She is the 38th governor of the state of Oregon. Join me in welcoming Governor Kate Brown.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am so honored and delighted to be with all of you this afternoon. And at a time in our nation's history when people, no names of course, across the country are trying to erase our past, I am so proud of the work here at the Oregon Historical Society to ensure that all of our history is preserved. As the Willamette Week would say, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The team at Oregon Historical Society ensures that our history is not forgotten, but highlighted in an effort to ensure that as we move forward, we will never, ever forget the past, and in fact, continue to learn lessons from it. Please, please join me in giving the amazing team at the Oregon Historical Society a round of applause. I was going to recognize some judges and justices, but I don't see them in the room. But I do see Representative Mari Watanabe. Yay! Woohoo! While she is a relative newcomer to the Oregon legislature, She has been advocating for justice for many, many years. She is also the first Japanese American to serve in your Oregon legislature. There is a saying, you can't be what you can't see. And Representative Watanabe hopes to inspire others to follow in her footsteps. Please give her another round of applause. Like many sessions recently in the last decade or so, the 2016 legislative session may have been defined by partisanship. House Bill 4009 was one of the number of important bills that received bipartisan support, and in fact, it passed unanimously. It declared March 28th to be Min Yasui Day in Oregon. It was my honor to sign that bill into law March 28th, 2016, exactly 10 years ago today. So today, I wanted to share an excerpt of my State of the State address from February of 2017 as we celebrated the passage of the bill. And I quote, "But for me, and I suspect Senator Chuck Thompson and Representative Mark Johnson, one of the most memorable days of the 2016 legislative session was the day when we passed legislation forever proclaiming March 28th as Min Yasui Day in Oregon. Born in Hood River a little over 100 years ago, Minoru Yasui was the first Japanese American to graduate from the University of Oregon Law School and the first Japanese American member of your Oregon State Bar. He made national history by challenging the constitutionality of Executive Order 9066, signed by President Franklin Roosevelt on February 19, 1942, which required persons of Japanese ancestry to remain in their homes between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. On March 28, 1942, at the age of 25, Mr. Yasui put his personal liberty on the line for justice as he intentionally violated the curfew by walking the streets of Portland. He was arrested and imprisoned for 9 months in solitary confinement at the Multnomah County Jail before being ordered to the Minidoka Relocation Center in Idaho, where he would remain until near the end of the war. Mr. Yasui eventually established a law practice in Denver, and until his death in 1986, continued to fight for civil rights for all, and for the courts to rule that Executive Order 9066 was unconstitutional. Mr. Yasui's ashes are buried beneath a pair of giant cedars in a Hood River cemetery. I went on to encourage Oregonians to fight discrimination and hate. Quote, "And I want to make it very clear that here in Oregon, where thousands have fought for and demanded equality, we cannot and we will not retreat. We must guard against prejudice based on race, ethnicity, religion, or belief." These remarks were given in 2017. And today, I'm imploring all of us to continue this fight. Min Yasui understood that this country that he loved so very much had not fulfilled its promise. And he believed that each one of us has, not had, a responsibility to fight to fulfill this nation's promise of equality and democracy, to close the gap between our values and the reality of justice for all. There is no greater legacy that he could leave us. And at this time in our nation, when democracy is under threat, there is no greater challenge. Let us do everything in our power to live up to his expectations and hopes for the future of our state and for our country. Thank you.
when asked to share the Yasui Project's history, I went back to a vivid conversation I had with Holly Yasui, who is also no longer with us, in 2013, and an interview in 2017 she did with the Japanese American National Museum. Here's the MYLP's history in Holly's own words. In 2013, the Japanese American National Museum invited me to participate on a panel with Jay Hirabayashi and Karen Korematsu to talk about our fathers and their legacies. The museum's conference was celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, which gave redress and an apology to Japanese Americans. I met up with Janice Tanaka, who was filming the event for JANM, and had been a classmate at film school in the 1980s. We got to talking, and the idea for a film about my father was planted in my mind. After the conference, I went to Portland to visit Peggy, me. We discussed the conference and my dad's 100th birthday coming up in 2016, and we hatched the idea of a Minoru Yasui tribute project. Peggy took on the task of getting a Presidential Medal of Freedom for my father, and I took on the making of the film. Peggy was successful in mobilizing a nationwide campaign, and I would add with many people in this room and across the country, to endorse the nomination, which resulted in a posthumous awarding of the medal by President Obama in 2015. She goes on to say, on my father's 100th birthday, October 16, 2016, we screened a work-in-progress version of the film in his hometown of Hood River, Oregon. Who's from Hood River here? Yay, all right. So thank you for being his hometown, but thank you for all the work that you're doing today and a lot of days. On March 28, 2017, we premiered the part 1 of the documentary, which covers his life up to the end of World War II. And she said, I'm still working on completing the film, and hopefully in 2018, she said, it would be done. In addition, Holly and others, as Governor Brown has presented, worked on a permanent Minoru Yasui Day for Oregon, and projects such as a student essay contest, signing on to civil rights amicus briefs, a school renaming movement, and more. Work that continues to this day, a whole host of educational presentations and programs, naming opportunities such as Apano's housing project with their community room named after men. Is anybody here from Apano? All right, thank you. And the Minoru Yasui Library at Perkins Coie Law Firm. Is anyone here from Perkins Coie? Yes, yes. A wonderful student art contest, of which you will see more of. More amicus briefs, one as significant as fighting for birthright citizenship, which is coming up before the Supreme Court on April 1st. All of which are only possible through the capable team of MYLP folks, and maybe you're going to do it again, but please stand up if you're on the Yasui Legacy Project Steering Committee. Please stand up. Please stand up. Or you're on the Student Art Contest. Woohoo! All of these things are possible only through the capable team of the MYLP folks with whom I know Holly would be proud to work. It's been almost 5 years since Holly's passing, it's hard to believe, and 10 years since the project started. When asked in 2017 what she thought her father's advice would be to young activists working against the authoritarian dictates of the Trump regime, Holly said, never give up. Keep fighting. Stand up and speak out. Work for the common good. Help make the world a better place in whatever way you can. That advice, good then, is even more important today. Thank you all.
afternoon and welcome everyone. On behalf of the Minoru Yasui Legacy Project and the Yasui family, thank you for being here today as we gather to commemorate Minoru Yasui Day. This year, as we have discussed, marks two important milestones: the 10th anniversary of Oregon's designation of March 28th as Minoru Yasui Day and the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Both speak to a shared belief that liberty must be protected, that justice must be pursued, and that no one should live under oppression. These are not just words from the past, they are principles that continue to guide us today. As we begin this slideshow, we invite you to reflect on that legacy and the ways it continues to live on today. Presidential Medal of Freedom. On November 24th, 2015, President Barack Obama awarded Minoru Yasui the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He remains the only Oregonian to receive our nation's highest civilian honor. Earlier that year, the Minoru Yasui Tribute Project, which would later become the Minoru Yasui Legacy Project, was established to gather materials and secure letters of endorsement from national civil rights organizations, members of Congress, and key elected officials in support of the nomination submitted to the White House. The nomination received bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate. During the ceremony, President Barack Obama offered these words on Min's enduring legacy. Yet despite what Japanese Americans endured, suspicion, hostility, forced removal, internment, Min never stopped believing in the promise of this country. He never stopped fighting for equality and justice for all. We believe in the greatness and in the great ideals of this country, he once said. We think that there is a future for all humanity in the United States of America. Today, Min's legacy has never been more important. It is a call to our national conscience, a reminder of our enduring obligation to be the land of the free and the home of the brave, an America worthy of his sacrifice. Minoru Yasui's example endures as a reminder of the power of one voice echoing for justice. Centennial Year, honoring 100 years of Minoru Yasui. The year 2016 marked the centennial of Minoru Yasui's birth, a powerful moment of recognition that renewed a shared commitment to justice. Across Oregon and beyond, communities came together to honor Min's legacy through legislation, public commemoration, and collective action. On February 25th, 2016, during an intensely bipartisan year, the Oregon State Legislature unanimously passed House Bill 4009, establishing March 28th as Minoru Yasui Day in Oregon. The day recognizes Min's courageous act in 1942 when he deliberately violated the military curfew to challenge its constitutionality. Governor Kate Brown signed the bill into law on March 28, 2016, the very same day that Min took that stand. In honor of the inaugural Minoru Yasui Day, the Minoru Yasui Day March for Justice brought together an estimated 400 participants, aged 5 to 103, to retrace the path Min walked from his law office in Portland's Japantown to the police headquarters where he was arrested. Marchers included Portland Mayor Charlie Hayes, Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum, members of the extended Yasui family, as well as the legislators who championed the bill. Participants carried placards featuring Min's image and words, and the program opened with a historical reenactment honoring the night of his arrest. Later that year, on October 19, 2016, the 100th anniversary of Min's birth, a legacy stone was dedicated in Min's hometown of Hood River. Installed at the Hood River Public Library, the stone features inscriptions drawn from Min's own words and serves as a permanent tribute to his courage and commitment to civil rights. The centennial year also marked the first public screening of Never Give Up, Minoru Yasui and the Fight for Justice, a documentary by his daughter Holly. Presented during a 2016 Civil Liberties Symposium, the film brought Min's story to life for new audiences and helped carry his legacy forward. From legislative recognition and public memorials to storytelling and community action, the centennial year was not only a commemoration of Min's life, it was a call to continue the work he began. Civil Liberties Symposium, Inspiring Action and Igniting Justice. On April 23, 2016, the all-day Civil Liberties Symposium at the World Trade Center, Portland, brought together leaders and community members for panels on cross-cultural activism, law and social change, and education. Senator Ron Wyden opened the program, and Karen Narasaki of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights delivered the keynote. The symposium concluded with Holly Yasui presenting a screening of her documentary in progress, Never Give Up. The event also offered CLE credit and aimed to inspire action, ignite justice, and empower individuals to make a difference. In 2016, the Vision and Vigilance program traveled to Ontario, Hood River, and Portland, engaging communities through a photo exhibit, a staged reading from citizen men, and facilitated discussions with local leaders. It brought together diverse and disparate communities to understand the impact of racism in Oregon's past and present. Through sharing his legacy, the program inspired discovery, thoughtful discussion, and critical thinking while fostering an appreciation of our civil rights and respect for a multicultural society. Establishing the Minoru Yasui Fellowship at the University of Oregon School of Law. Bill and Marie Waterman established the Yasui Student Fellowship in 2012 through a generous contribution to the University of Oregon School of Law, with the hope of inspiring alumni to invest in supporting students working to create a better future. The fellowship honors men's legacy and serves as a reminder of the need for vigilance in the name of liberty. The endowment supports scholarship, public service, and academic offers in human and civil rights law, while helping to attract, retain, and support faculty and students dedicated to human rights issues. Fellows are selected based on their academic record and commitment to the values embodied in men's life and legacy. Minoru Yasui Day through the pandemic. Although the global pandemic brought daily life to a halt, the work of the Minoru Yasui Legacy Project continued, as did the annual Minoru Yasui Day event, which pivoted to virtual and hybrid formats. In 2021, the virtual program, Immigrants and Refugees, The Path to Justice, featured Senator Mazie Hirono in a fireside chat with MYLP co-founder Peggy Nagai. The event reached a broader audience than ever before, with more than 350 people in attendance. In 2022, Taking a Stand Against Racism and Discrimination featured a panel including Eric Ward, Executive Director of Western States, Carrie Timchuk, Executive Director of the Oregon Historical Society, and Deepa Iyer, author and Senior Director of Strategic Initiatives. Preserving History. In 2023, Minoru Yasui Day annual event featured the official dedication of this historic jail cell, now installed as the centerpiece of the Japanese American Museum of Oregon. This project began when Multnomah County Judge Nan Waller contacted Peggy with the idea to preserve Minoru Yasui's actual jail cell, where he spent 9 months in solitary confinement before the courthouse was sold. Peggy then partnered with Lynn Fuchigami Parks of JAMO to lead the effort to extract, relocate, and reconstruct the cell as a permanent installation to house Min's Presidential Medal of Freedom. The process took 4 years from start to finish, including getting the cell donated, deconstructed with remediation, moved, and then carefully welded and reconstructed by artist and sculptor Brian Borello, all during the global pandemic. The cell was officially dedicated at the 2023 Minoru Yasui Day event as the centerpiece of the museum. The program featured the film Behind the Bars, along with music, poetry, and reflections from community members and Min's family, honoring both his sacrifice and his enduring legacy. Yasui Hall, honoring a legacy at the University of Oregon. The University of Oregon honored the Yasui family with the opening of Yasui Hall, a space that reflects not only Min's courage, but the enduring strength of a family shaped by injustice and committed to service. Min was one of 4 Yasui siblings, along with Michi, Shu, and Yuka, who attended the University of Oregon. Each arrived with hopes for education and opportunity, only to have those paths disrupted by the forced removal and incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II. Yasui Hall opened in 2023 with an official dedication on May 4th, 2025, bringing together generations of the Yasui family, students, and university leaders to honor a legacy that continues to shape lives today. Yasui Hall stands not only as a tribute, but as a call inviting every student who passes through its doors to lead with courage, stand in the face of injustice, and carry forward the work that Min and his family began. Recognition of Min's legacy continues beyond Oregon, reaching communities across the nation, from his hometown of Hood River to Denver, where he spent much of his life as a civil rights leader advocating for marginalized communities. Across the country, organizations, schools, and community partners continue to honor his legacy through programs, events, and opportunities for learning. Much of this work happens because people choose to carry it forward, and it is received with deep gratitude. In these efforts, his legacy lives on, continuing to teach, to inspire, and to call each new generation forward. Oregon Historical Society, the Yasui family. Here at the Oregon Historical Society, the exhibition, The Yasui Family, An American Story, brings to life the experiences of the Yasui family across generations. Through photographs, personal artifacts, and historical records, the exhibit tells a story of resilience and perseverance. It places Minoru Yasui's legal challenge within the broader context of family, community, and the lived realities of Japanese Americans during and after World War II. More than a reflection on the past, the exhibit invites visitors to consider the ongoing relevance of this history and encourages dialogue about civil liberties and the responsibility to stand against injustice in all of its forms. By preserving and sharing these stories, the Oregon Historical Society ensures that the Yasui family's legacy continues to inspire and challenge future generations. The Minoru Yasui Student Contest. Founded in 2018 by Min's daughter Holly, this annual contest invites students in grades 5 through 12 to explore the connection of Minoru Yasui's legacy of activism with today's ongoing fight for democracy and justice. What began as an essay contest for students in Oregon has grown into a national art competition, encouraging young people to express their perspectives through visual art and accompanying artist statements. Through reflection and creativity, students engage with complex issues of civil rights, equity, and civic responsibility. In doing so, the contest not only honors Min's legacy, it helps cultivate the next generation of civic leaders, empowering students to use their personal voice and see themselves as active participants in shaping a more just and inclusive future. As Min's granddaughter, it is deeply meaningful to stand before you, not only as family, but as someone who continues learning from his example every day. Min believed in the power of community, in showing up, in speaking out, and building bridges across differences. His legacy lives on through the work of the MYLP, through the many lives he touched, and through the generations who continue to carry his work forward. Today's program invites us to reflect not only on Min's legacy, but on the responsibilities we carry into this moment. One of the most meaningful ways we see Min's legacy continue is through the young people who will be our next generation of leaders. The Minoru Yasui Student Art Contest inspires the next generation of civic leaders by inviting students to reflect on justice through creativity and personal expression. It is my pleasure to welcome Emily Thackeray, Chair of the Student Contest Committee, and Alyssa Dingus, Co-Chair and JAMA Director of the Educational Engagement.
Hi, I'm Emily Thackeray. It's so nice to be here today with all of you. We would like to extend our sincere thanks to the many volunteers and participants who make this contest possible. We are fortunate to have dedicated volunteers who return year after year to serve as judges, develop curriculum, and promote the contest. We are also inspired by the continued participation of students from across the United States. And I'd like to give a special thank you to one of those students who continued to volunteer for us and has volunteered for 5 years, is graduating high school this spring and is down here from Vancouver for today. So I'd like to give Logan Pinard a little special shout out. Logan, stand up, stand up. This year we are especially grateful to have the support of our contest sponsor, Scout Books. Please support them. This year's prompt was not an easy one. Upholding the rule of law, what does seeking justice for all look like? We are living in a time when the Constitution is being challenged, the rule of law is being tested, and many communities, including immigrants and other marginalized groups, face increasing discrimination and division. In this context, we ask students to reflect on a powerful question. If Minoru Yasui were alive today, what hopeful actions might he take to support democracy, civil rights, and social justice? That's not a small task to put into a piece of artwork for 5th graders through 12th graders. Students were invited to create an original artwork expressing their perspective on the prompt, along with an activist artist statement connecting their works to the importance of protecting the Constitution and the rule of law, hopeful actions that can advance democracy, civil rights, and social justice, and Minoru Yasui's enduring legacy of seeking justice for all. Thank you again for everyone who has contributed to this contest. I'm going to be giving the mic to Alyssa now, who will be sharing some of the winners with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. This is my 4th year of being involved with running the student contest, and every year there are submissions that really leave an impact on everyone who sees them. Today I have the esteemed honor of introducing this year's contest winners, students whose work is thoughtful, intentional, and serves to remind us of the brighter future that we can build together. Each of these students will share their artist statement with us. We will begin with the junior division winners. The 2nd place winner in the junior division is Ty Yelmeland, 8th grader at the Arts and Communication Magnet Academy in Beaverton, Oregon. Let's give them a round of applause.
Hello, my name is Ty Elmeland. I am in 8th. Oh, okay. My name is Ty Elmeland. I'm in 8th grade at ACMA, the Arts and Communication Magnet Academy in Beaverton. My art depicts the lasting legacy of Minoru Yasui and includes symbols relating to his journey, including his arrest, prison, and a fight against racism and oppression. The furthest background is a prison cell symbolizing the night Minoru Yasui got arrested. I placed it in the background with everything in front of it because that is where the whole journey started. He left the prison behind, as well as the racism and oppression following. The government building with protesters around is meant to show Minoru Yasui's legacy affecting the world today, with the Stop Asian Hate protests in 2021 through 2022 that came out of the COVID-19 pandemic. This protest was fighting for the same things as Minoru Yasui, but past his time. The balanced scale is used to represent the goal and outcome of Minoru Yasui's work, and it represents equality and balance. Minoru Yasui is looking out courageously and is meant to feel powerful and calm as he looks out and reflects on his journey. The layout of the artwork has layered concepts meant to represent the timeline of his journey. I use colored pencils to show emotion of how The jail cell background is gray with a purple hue to show how dull and relentless jail can be. Purple is meant to show how it was also an opportunity. The government building is peach and purple underneath, while the outside is gray for the same reasons as the jail cell. Protesters came in many different colors because all humans are diverse and no one is the same. Both the balance scale and Minoru Yasui are colorful and vibrant to show that their spirit is still alive, just as I believe the spirit of Minoru Yasui is alive today.
Thank you, Ty. The first place winner in the junior division is Ava Makia, an 8th grader at Gaithersburg Middle School in Gaithersburg, Maryland. She was unable to be with us here today, and she will share her statement by video with us.
Hello, my name is Ava Makia. I'm 14 years old. I'm from Gaithersburg, Maryland, and I go to Gaithersburg Middle School. The way I found out about the Minoru Yasui Legacy Project was through a school essay about unsung civil rights leaders. When I started to research about Minoru Yasui, I found the Legacy Project and decided to apply. Now I must say, we are living in unpredictable times where the Constitution and rule of law are constantly being challenged. Immigrants, universities, companies, and marginalized communities often face unequal treatment, making it essential to ask what seeking justice truly means. Minoru Yasui's Legacy Project provides strong examples about how rule of law must protect everybody equally. Minoru Yasui believed that the Constitution has value when applied to everybody. During World War II, he deliberately broke curfew imposed on Japanese Americans, exposing how the government violated its own laws based on targeting race. His actions showed that seeking justice sometimes requires challenging unjust laws to uphold the true meaning of rule of law. My art piece reflects this belief. Lady Justice shows the structure and balance within my artwork, representing the rule of law, creating fairness and stability, as well as the paper crane representing peace and hope with the colors of strength and resilience. The lanterns symbolizing guidance and community, blank spaces for failed and silencing voices, like light breaking through the spaces representing accountability and hope. Through this piece, I hope to show that rule of law is not just automatic. It must be defended, just like Yasui did. This project is deeply personal to me because I am half Okinawan. Learning about Minoru Yasui connects my family's history to a larger national scale of injustice and resilience. Knowing that people like Yasui stood up for rights that could have been taken from families like mine makes this story feel intimate and real, not just distant history. My identity shapes how I understand Yasui's legacy. His courage represents both resilience and the responsibility to challenge injustice, so future generations are protected. Through art and writing, I hope to honor Minoru Yasui by showing that seeking justice for all is the truest way to uphold the rule of law and to preserve democracy. Thank you.
Wonderful work. We are going to move now to our winners in the senior division. The second place winner in the senior division is Ami Moon, a senior at Kent Ridge High School in Kent, Washington. She will also share her statement by video with us.
Hello, I hope everyone is having a good day. I'm Ami Moon from Kent Ridge High School, and to start off, I wanted to apologize for not being able to attend this event in person. I would have loved to, but life got in the way, so I hope I can make up for that in this video. I'm also very honored to have gotten second place, and I'm really happy that you guys thought my message was worth sharing to everyone. And I hope this message can uplift more people and give hope in these darker and unpredictable times. The Constitution and the rules of law were established on the basis of equality. The heart of this nation is built on the notion that everyone, regardless of their background, should be heard. However, our current administration has defiled the meaning of justice, and left an unrecognizable and fleeting image of what our nation should be. When the rules of law are a suggestion and the Constitution a loose guidebook, it seems justified to break families apart and kidnap children from their schools because of the shade of their skin. Like the fading Lady Justice in my painting, hope seems tenuous in these unpredictable times. Yet, in the blues and blacks of oil paint, vitality emerges. It's legacies like Minoru Yasui's who evoke action in ordinary people and keep her alive. Change relies on discomfort. My art displays the dismemberment of Lady Justice. Her flesh is exposed, showing the consequences of ignoring the rules of law in an unfiltered form. Hope is not made through comfort, but through action, fiery passions, and an anger for change. Like the vibrant oranges and reds that fill the lady's bloodstream and keep her together. Minoru Yasui was just an ordinary man. Yet, when he stood in that courtroom, he became the lifeline for thousands of marginalized individuals. He wanted to share the message that anyone can act. So I chose a young Hispanic girl to represent the passion and power that drives change. The heart of justice doesn't have to be wealthy, physically strong, or well-connected. It can be you. The most dangerous action in times like these is inaction. Protests, boycotts, and noise are what keep equality alive. We should be loud, colorful, and wide-reaching. Tell them, we are here and we will not give up.
The first place winner in the senior division is Catherine Abbott, a junior at the Northwest School in Seattle, Washington. And Catherine is with us here today and will share her statement. Let's give her a round of applause.
Hello, my name is Catherine Abbott, and I would like to sincerely thank you for having me here today. I cannot express what an honor it is to be selected for this award. In a time where the rule of law is being ignored by those who promise to uphold it, it is more important than ever to speak out for justice and equality. However, in our divided country, it often feels as though the pursuit of justice has been radicalized and even made out to be the problem in our society, rather than the step to the solution it is. This could not be farther from the truth, as Minoru Yasui demonstrated in his own battle for justice when he fought discriminatory laws that targeted his fellow Japanese Americans. Yasui understood that obstacles would need to be overcome to achieve immediate change, while making sure his community and others understood that their voices too could be heard with perseverance. In my piece, Leading by Example, I use collage of traditional Japanese prints to honor Minoru Yasui's heritage and ballpoint pen to depict what I believe is the only way to counter destructive narratives and uphold the rule of law. Speaking out louder than ever to inspire our future leaders to use their voices to uphold the rule of law. I want to illustrate the act of speaking out with children in the collage learning to participate in a march for justice, following the path that Yasui and others have forged for them. We live in a time when the fear of retaliation has silenced many voices, and it is crucial that we take action now to demonstrate the power of protest. Thank you.
Catherine brought her piece with her today, so it is on view up here after we're finished. Ty also brought that beautiful drawing, which is behind me now. I hope you'll get a chance to check them out once we're finished here. We also, as part of the student contest each year, acknowledge the educator who had the most students enter the contest and submit entries. And this year's Educator Engagement Award goes to Brooke Warren, who's a teacher at the Arts and Communication Magnet Academy in Beaverton, Oregon. Let's give Brooke a round of applause. And I don't think she was able to join us today, but if you're here, let us know. Alrighty. Let's give one final round of applause for all of this year's winners of really excellent work. And then one last thing, as each year's contest comes to a close, we start to turn our gaze towards next year's. And each year's planning begins with the selection of a prompt. And we'd like your input on relevant, compelling topics to consider for next year's contest. Over on the side over there, there's a table that has some post-it notes. There's a prompt there that you can respond to. There's also a big jar. So if you have ideas for topics or prompts for us to think about for next year, please feel free to add those into the jar so that we can collect those suggestions and take them under advisement. Thank you all so much for your attention today. It was really wonderful being here with you.
Thank you, Emily and Alyssa. You do so much work, and we are so grateful. And congratulations to this year's student artists. Your work challenges and inspires us and continues to shine a light on the future leaders. Next, we turn to our keynote and panel conversation. To guide us into this discussion, it is my honor to welcome Sherston Lyon, Director of the Honors College at Southern Oregon University, who will introduce today's themes and our panelists.
Thank you. What a privilege to be here. Thank you to the Minoru Yasui Legacy Project, the Japanese American Museum of Oregon, the Oregon Historical Society for the honor of speaking with you today. It is a sincere honor. And thank you to all of you, to our distinguished guests, to Governor Brown, to the student contest winners, their families, to all of you who took time out of your day to be here with us to honor the legacy of Minoru Yasui. This is a time when our democracy is in peril. The rule of law is being challenged or just simply ignored. ICE is engaged in unbridled racial profiling, and the Supreme Court will begin hearing arguments next week for and against the administration's executive order limiting birthright citizenship. And as I prepared my remarks, I thought, if Minoru Yasui was here today and I didn't get the honor of meeting him in person, but still, if he were here today, what might he say in the parlance of our times? Yeah, that tracks. I've seen this before. This isn't new. If I were to summarize the lessons I've learned from studying Minoru Yasui's life in the archives, in the written record, it would be this. 1, citizenship alone will not save us. 2, during times of war and in times of perceived national crisis, there are those who will work hard to get the rule of law to bend the knee to long-standing prejudices, racism, and fear. 3, democracy and the rule of law are not self-enforcing. Our norms and democratic values require that people enforce them, often with great courage and against intense pressure to do otherwise. In other words, when thinking about the long arc of the moral universe bending toward justice, as abolitionist and Unitarian minister Theodore Parker wrote in 1853, in order for the long arc of the moral universe to bend toward justice, it requires that people bend it. It won't bend itself. Finally, we must play the long game. We must not give up hope. We must not quit fighting the good fight. Or to quote Rabbi Toran from over 2,000 years ago, the day is short, the work is plentiful. It is not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you at liberty to neglect it. So this democratic experiment of ours is not one that will ever be finished. It is a process, not a destination. So what is it specifically about Minoru Yasui's life that teaches me this? Let me tell you a few things that I've learned about him and his father. Minoru Yasui, of course, was born of Japanese immigrant parents who were barred by law from becoming citizens because they were neither white nor of African descent. When the law changed in 1952, they immediately became citizens. But for men, by virtue of the 14th Amendment and a subsequent Supreme Court case that determined the citizenship of the son of Chinese immigrants, Wong Kim Ark, Minoru Yasui was endowed with birthright citizenship in the United States. And as we've already heard today, Min was the first Japanese American to graduate from the University of Oregon Law School. He was the first Japanese American to be admitted to the Oregon Bar Association. He was a commissioned second lieutenant in the US Army, and he was a part of the Infantry Reserve when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in 1941. He was raised in a family that took civic duty and patriotism to the United States very seriously. However, 5 days after Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, Min's father, Moss, was picked up by the FBI and imprisoned in an immigration and naturalization detention facility in Montana. He remained in custody while he awaited a hearing to determine if he would be paroled or remain in INS custody. Never on the table was a hearing to determine if he was innocent of the accusations that he posed a grave threat to US national security. The only options were to remain interned or be paroled. Min tried to help get his father released, following instructions sent by his father in a telegram sent immediately after Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. Min resigned his job working as a clerical attaché and speechwriter for the Japanese Consulate General in Chicago and returned to Oregon. When Min went to the FBI field office in Portland to see if there was anything he could do to get his father released from INS custody, his work for the Japanese Consulate General immediately became an issue. To comply with the law, Min had to be registered with the State Department as an agent for the Japanese government. This, along with his Japanese ancestry, made him a suspect citizen. Later, according to the U.S. District Court of Oregon, the court that convicted him of violating curfew, the court declared that in their opinion, working for the Japanese Consulate General was the same as renouncing his U.S. citizenship. The Supreme Court, by the way, disagreed, and even though they upheld his conviction, they remanded the case back to the district court so that they could correct this error. Min learned over the course of the following months and years that race prejudice had the ability to trump the 14th Amendment citizenship rights that he was endowed with by birth, particularly in the context of war. He even found that in trying to gather evidence and affidavits to make a case for his father's release from immigration detention, it was his status as a suspect citizen that tipped the scales in his father's parole hearing. To quote the ruling of the parole board, even though the father is the subject of detention, the board and the United States attorney consider the son even more dangerous to the public peace and safety. Considering all of the surrounding circumstances, the activity of the subject, meaning Moss, his standing with the Japanese government, his leadership in his community, the influence he has with the Japanese immigrant community in Hood River, the board finds that he is dangerous to be at large and under present conditions of war between Japan and the United States, recommends that he be interned. And he remained interned despite follow-up parole hearings until 4.5 months after the war ended. A single dissenting report challenged the parole's decision, and this individual recommended parole. He wrote, "The recommendation of internment is based primarily on the activities of the son. It is apparent that the roots of this subject are entirely in this country. His business, his children, his property are all here. After all, the subject's son is not on trial here, it is his father. It is significant that on the day of Pearl Harbor attack, the subject wired his son to quit the Japanese consulate and to enlist in the US Army. There is nothing to indicate that the subject would be influenced by the connections of his son with the Japanese consulate. One wonders what the attitude of the American-born children of this subject will be toward this country if the father is interned by reason of the actions of the lawyer's son." So what was the attitude of Min Yasui after his father was denied parole? Min continued to fight. He continued to fight the race-based injustice of wartime policies for exclusion and internment and incarceration of Japanese Americans without due process. As we've heard, he turned himself into the Portland police on March 28, 1942, rather than comply. His goal was to create a legal test case of what he truly believed was the unconstitutionality of Executive Order 9066 and the resulting law that placed only those of Japanese ancestry under curfew orders and that allowed for the exclusion of Japanese Americans from the West Coast and for their incarceration without due process. Even though he lost in court at the time and served 9 months in solitary confinement for his conviction, he never stopped fighting to vindicate himself and to defend the rights of others, often working across lines of race and ethnicity. His life truly embodied Rabbi Toran's words from more than 2,000 years ago. It was not his duty to finish the work. He died before the Supreme Court ruled on his coram nobis case and vacated his conviction, but he was not at liberty to neglect the work either. He never quit, he never gave up. And as we've heard, on November 24th, he received the Presidential Freedom Award from President Obama. And of course, we continue to honor him today. Chester B. Himes wrote in 1944, "Democracy is for the unafraid." He said it is until those in power, until the white majority in this country, yet those who are in the minority globally, are no longer afraid, democracy in this country will never be realized. He did not say democracy will die. He said democracy will never be realized. It will never come to fruition. Next month, the Manzanar pilgrimage will happen. Manzanar co-chair Bruce Embry stated, "The significance of our annual Manzanar pilgrimage has never been greater than it is today. As the assault on our democracy, the militarization of our cities, and the building of massive concentration camps unfolds, we need to come together like we did during the redress movement and fight for our democracy." And I'll end with the words of Suro for Solidarity, who was honored at Minyasui last year. "Never again is now. Never again is right now." Thank you. I'd like to invite my fellow panelists up to the front. And is Frank here? Yes. Okay, great. Wonderful, thanks. I'm going to introduce them while they get settled in. Eric Nato Campbell is graduate of Reed College and author of Portland's Audacious Champion, a book about the life of her grandfather, Bill Nato. Erica was born in Portland and grew up next door to her grandma and grandpa Nato, who instilled in her progressive values and social justice, equality, and a profound connection with nature. Recently, Erica has worked on Oregon Rises Above Hate, an annual event highlighting Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander issues and community. Eliza Canty-Jones is the editor of the Oregon Historical Quarterly, a chief program officer at the Oregon Historical Quarterly, where she works with programs, events, and education teams. Eliza prioritizes collaborations with people from across cultures, generations, and knowledge backgrounds to create publications and programs that elevate marginalized voices and advance complex perspectives. Kevin Hatfield is the Assistant Vice Provost of Undergraduate Research and Distinguished Scholarships and Director of Academic Residential and Research Initiatives at the University of Oregon. Kevin is a fifth-generation Oregonian. He earned his bachelor's degree and doctorate degrees in history from the University of Oregon. He also earned his master's degree in history from Utah State University. Kevin has served as an affiliated faculty member with the History Department and Clark Honors College since 2003. His scholarship and courses specialize in the history of race, ethnicity, immigration, settler colonialism, and the environment in the Pacific Northwest. He conducts community-centered research with the Basque communities of the Northern Great Basin and the Northern Paiute communities of the Confederate tribes of Warren Springs and Burns Paiute tribe. And finally, Frank So is Executive Director of Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon. Prior to coming to Oregon, Frank worked for the Office of Vice President Kamala Harris as a Vice Presidential Associate, and before that, for President Barack Obama as a Presidential Associate. For over a decade, Frank served as a U.S. diplomat in Latin America, the Caribbean, and Northern and East Africa. Most recently, he was a Senior Mission Advisor with the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, in Colombia, and Senior Human Rights Advisor for USAID in Honduras. Before working with the government, Frank served the United Nations in Darfur, Sudan, and the Republic of South Sudan. Frank holds a master's degree in peace studies and conflict resolution from the University of Ulster and a bachelor's degree in international studies from Seattle University. So please join me in welcoming our panelists. I will be asking each panelist a question. I've asked them to keep their remarks to about 4 or 5 minutes, please. Following this, we will open up the floor to a few questions from all of you, and then we will wrap up this portion of our program when I ask the questions to address briefly one uniform question. So, Erica, the book you wrote about your grandfather, William Bill Sumio Naito, presents such an excellent example of how history is experienced by individuals and that it is complex and it defies simple narratives. So, based on your research and your personal observations, why are the histories of people like your grandfather and Minoru Yasui so important for us to remember in all of their complexity? And what do these stories and stories like them teach us that we need to remember?
So I did write my answer down because if I didn't, I would take everyone's time. So we live in a world of bubbles right now, really cozy, comforting bubbles that tell us what we think and feel is good. And World War II is a really cozy bubble for America, right? We were the ultimate good guys. We defeated the ultimate evil, the Nazis, and the penultimate evil, the Empire of Japan. And we feel so good about that. Oh, but we were committing evil at home against our own citizens. Pop goes the bubble. And that's part of the role of historians and academics, activists and authors, is our job is to pop bubbles. Because what's cozy isn't the same as what's true. And the immigrant bootstrap story is another really cozy bubble that my grandfather's story fits in. Anyone can come to America and they can build a great company and they can do all these great things, and gosh darn it, we're not as racist as we think we are, and you know, look at that Bill Nato. My job is to pop that bubble by saying, why did he do it? Because he'd been so deeply scarred by the racism of World War II and the rejection of white society that he spent his entire life trying to prove white society wrong, trying to prove that he was as good as them. And actually that wasn't enough. He had to prove he was better than them. And every day of his life was dedicated to this unhealthy drive. I think Min and my grandfather are what I like to call unsafe victims of history. The safest victim that we love to talk about is Anne Frank, because we didn't do it to her. And right now, as ICE is committing atrocities, people always point out the connections to Anne Frank. And then I'm the annoying poster who says, oh, but did you know? We did that to Japanese Americans. So ICE is kidnapping people off the streets. And there's a part of her diary where she talks about community members are disappearing off the streets. And I'm quick to say, oh, but did you know? Homer Yasui came home for lunch and no one knew where Moss was. He'd been kidnapped and sent to a secret prison. There's a recent measles outbreak at one of the detention facilities for ICE. People are quick to point out Anne Frank died of typhoid because of unsanitary conditions in the camps. I'm quick to point out there was a gonorrhea outbreak in Minidoka, which infected pregnant women because of unsanitary conditions in Idaho. So if we don't talk about what we're actually capable of, if we don't own our worst impulses have been acted upon, then we can't create guardrails to prevent them. We've kind of been living on a wishful hope that presidents won't do X, that Congress won't do X. And we need to own our truth so we can protect our country and our ideals. We need to pop bubbles. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Eliza, the study and interpretation of history as an academic discipline and as a habit of mind is under attack by those who would use history as a tool of propaganda and a weapon that can either reify or challenge the values, the identities, and even the very existence of entire populations. So can you tell us how you view the discipline of history, both as a tool of critical thinking and as a foundational building block for a well-functioning democracy, and how the Yasui family collection and exhibition help bring the public into that conversation?
Thank you so much, Kirsten, for this three-part question and the challenge to answer it briefly. I'll try and follow Erica's lead. So the discipline of history and how we use it for critical thinking. History is a lot like science in that historians ask questions. So they don't ask questions necessarily of a scientific experiment that they're conducting, but they ask questions of the primary documents that exist from the past. So many of you have bookmarks on your chair. You can scan the QR code and go to find incredible primary documents from the Yasui family collections here at the Oregon Historical Society. These are materials that were made at the time by people who were there. And when historians investigate those primary documents and ask those questions, they're doing it as part of a massive ongoing conversation among each other, with other scholars, with members of the public, with all kinds of knowledge holders. And that conversation is one that rests on really deep values, which I'll talk a little bit about some of the values here at OHS that are inspired by what historians do. But historians are transparent and they show their work. You heard Kirsten give a citation, right, from, oh, this person said this on this date, right? So historians show their work because they want the public to know where they got their ideas from, and they want each other to know where they got their ideas from, so they can always go back to those same primary documents, can re-enter that conversation, and can be part of that. Because when historians make arguments about how they've analyzed the past, they're not making an argument just to be right. They're making an argument because they're saying, here's what I think this means. They're always looking at causal relationships. What was the action and what was the reaction? And they want other people to be able to look at that and say, where'd you get that idea? Oh, I think that argument works, or I think you missed this part. So that's what I mean by that ongoing conversation. And here at OHS, we have a couple of our organizational values that I am going to read to you because I think they're inspired by this discipline. So one is integrity. The Oregon Historical Society is committed to honest communication, transparency, and managing resources in a trustworthy and accountable manner. We foster evidence-based practices in our research, scholarship, exhibitions, educational programs, and publications. And the other value I'll share with you is learning. OHS values questions, new ideas, and unexpected connections and discoveries that arise through inquiry. We welcome challenging conversations and the opportunity to learn from mistakes. We recognize that willingness to change our minds is crucial to understanding history and applying it to the present. So when we think about democracy and how this practice of critical analysis can foster democracy, one of the things that I think democracy requires is imagination. We have to imagine a different world. We have to imagine, as Erica talked about, the capability that people have to be violent toward each other, to oppress each other. History allows us to imagine that. But also when we practice democracy, what we're practicing is the imagination of what the world looks like when everybody's voice is at the table, when we are accounting for everybody's experience. And in history, you can see not just yourself reflected, but other people. So really that practice of imagining is huge, is really huge. When I think about what the Yasui family has given to OHS, the work that we've been able to do alongside the family and with so many other partners to bring this exhibition, these collections, the scholarship, the educational materials, it's about listening and learning. We have shared with the public the story of the Yasui family, as we've talked about today. This is a remarkable family, and it's also a typical American family. Minoru Yasui was a remarkable person, and the actions that he took are so similar to so many actions that some of you right here in the audience today and so many others have taken and continue to take. So I'll just share with you a note. One of the things that we've done is to be able to create educational resources for K through 12 educators based in these collections. And so my coworker, Katie Pearson, has hosted a three-part learning series with middle school and high school teachers in Condon, Oregon. And the teachers use these resources and give feedback. So one of them was a Hood River Nikkei in the 1920s document-based question. So here is the feedback from the teacher, from Condon. Students responded to this lesson with a mix of curiosity, surprise, and genuine engagement, largely because the history was rooted in a place they know so well. Many were struck by the idea that discrimination this severe happened in Hood River Valley, not somewhere far away. And that realization made the primary sources feel more personal and relevant. As they analyzed the documents, students asked thoughtful questions about fairness, belonging, and why the Nikkei community was targeted. And several expressed admiration for the resilience and determination shown by Japanese American families during the 1920s. The place-based nature of the resource helped even reluctant learners lean in, and the combination of photographs, legal records, and local stories sparked meaningful discussions about how communities respond to exclusion. So that's just one example of what this work has allowed us to do.
Thank you, Eliza. Kevin, beginning in the late 2000s, several universities, particularly on the West Coast, have taken steps to recognize Japanese American students whose educations were interrupted by World War II, granting them honorary degrees as a form of reparations, accompanied with an apology. How is the University of Oregon going even further with its efforts to preserve the honor and legacy of the Yasui family and other Japanese Americans? And how is the University of Oregon making these histories relevant to students and researchers today?
Thank you so much for the question, and I just want to say how honored I am to be here on invitation of the family to share a little bit about the work we've been up to over the past couple years. So I want to begin by sharing that we've had 12 members of the Yasui family over 4 generations who have attended and earned degrees from the University of Oregon, and there are currently family members enrolled as both undergraduate and graduate students. Of these alumni, the 4 Nisei siblings, Minoru, Michi, Shu, and Yuka, are part of this growing family of ducks. The naming of Yasui Hall is a new apartment-style residence hall for undergraduates in the heart of campus, and it's adjacent to the former men's dormitory where both Min and then later Shu lived. Builds, I think, on the institution's attempt and their past actions to redress the harms and injustices endured by Japanese American students. In June of 1986, the UO invited Michi and her family to the graduation ceremony to receive the diploma she had earned 44 years prior with her BA in English. In April of 1942, UO administrators had unsuccessfully petitioned the Department of Justice and the Wartime Civil Control Administration on behalf of Michi for an exception to the curfew that would have allowed her to attend her commencement ceremony that was in about a month's time, literally less than a block from the women's dormitory at MacArthur Court. The petition was denied, and so although Michi did earn her degree, she was denied the opportunity to attend her commencement. One of our archivists, Keith Richard, at the time came across these records, and that's what led to inviting Michi back in 1986. In April of 2008, the UO conferred honorary degrees to 20 former Japanese American students whose educations were disrupted, again, following Executive Order 9066 and forced removal. Shu, who was a first-year student at the time in spring of 1942, traveled from his home in Pennsylvania to attend and was quoted by the Eugene Register Guard at the time stating, "It's something I never expected would happen in my lifetime." So beginning in fall of 2023, I enjoyed the privilege of chairing the committee that was charged with naming this new residence hall, planning and hosting a dedication ceremony, and designing both permanent physical and digital exhibits as part of this. My greatest honor, though, was the opportunity to get to know and work with members of the Yasui family, including 4 who served as official members of the committee. And I just want to acknowledge them: Barbara Yasui, Lisa Yasui, Amy Cheshire, and Tyra Fujikura, who spent a tremendous amount of time also conferring and consulting with the extended family across the country on every decision point throughout that 18-month process leading up to the dedication on May 4th, 2025, and you saw the photo earlier. We were able to host 42 members and 3 generations of the family from across the country. It was important that the naming process centered the Yasui family and their voices and led with the values of relationships and reciprocity. Before even proceeding with the naming of the building, and again, not to be a typical settler colonial institution appropriating things, we sought the family's informed approval, even just with the idea of naming Yasui Hall in recognition of the 4 Nisei siblings and obviously the broader Yasui family. We also ensured that the family retained full decision-making authority and editorial control for every element of the project, including all content and design elements of the exhibits. The family also co-authored and approved the naming resolution that was passed unanimously by the Board of Trustees via live stream, so the family could tune in and watch the vote wherever they might be that day. And I just want to share that the family developed the overall thematic arc for sharing their history as a journey story to and from the University of Oregon that they believe would resonate, and I can tell them it does, with current students. Lisa and Barbara explained to the committee that one of the enduring questions from their Uncle Min is, quote, how will you take the gift of education and make the world a better place with it? And so the family provided 3 framing questions for the exhibits and the way that students engage the space, really the broader community. The first is, who is the family that brought you here and their aspirations for your education? The second is, who is the family you make while you're here? And then finally, after you leave this place, how will you honor your family by fulfilling the responsibility of taking the knowledge you've gained with you and using it to make positive change in the world? So I think the institution, again, wanting to make sure this wasn't a tokenistic gesture, has made a commitment to the family that naming Yasui Hall will meaningfully and continuously interweave their family story and the impact of their advocacy and life's work that's ongoing with the living memory of the campus community. And I'll just close with a couple of examples of what does that mean. So to realize this commitment, there's a learning commons in Yasui Hall, and all of you are invited to visit, and we're happy to host you as well. The physical exhibits there are on the campus tour route for prospective students and families who are visiting campus for admissions events. And so literally hundreds, thousands of students are visiting that on an annual basis. The student ambassadors who lead those tours have incorporated talking points into their presentations as part of the tours. We also have the resident assistants and the community director who live in the building incorporate Yasui family history and the exhibits for the move-in orientation for the residents who live there every fall. And then finally, I'm excited that my colleagues in various departments, history, Asian studies, the Honors College, have visited Yasui Hall and the archives with their classes and have integrated research assignments into their courses about the Yasui family, about the experiences of Japanese American students, and many of these are then presented at our annual undergraduate research symposium in May. And so it really is a commitment to making sure this is a living story and not something that's simply a sign or a building or even just an exhibit, but something that's engaged throughout the community. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Frank, there's so many reminders of the injustices of the past happening all around us. Tsuru for Solidarity's slogan, "Never Again is Now," underscores the connection between the injustices of the past and the imperative to act in the present. In your work, what does Never Again Now look like? And what is happening right now in our own communities, and what can we do to help?
Good afternoon. There is a lot behind that. Never again now. I don't think we need to ask ourselves why are we saying that, because whether it was INS then and it's ICE now, whether it was the invoking the Enemy Aliens Act then as it was now, the effects in our community, I think, is where I would want to focus. The organization I work for, Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon, has a legal program. And let me give you an example of how it affects the community now. Shortly after I leave here, after I go protest, I will go to a church. And in the basement of that church, I will be meeting with one of our community organizers and a few of our lawyers. Our lawyers are going to be helping families there who are going to be thinking of what to do if the parents are taken, but the kids remain. Let me repeat that again. There's going to be kids next to me as I interpret from English to Spanish and Spanish to English, wondering why their parents are tearing up and why our lawyers are ensuring that there is a power of attorney signed by a neighbor, by a friend, by another family member who could take those kids if their parents don't show up. That is the reality. That is a very harsh and sad reality. That is how it's impacting our community now. So, how does it impact us? It impacts us in a very profound and a very sad way. This is why, when we ask ourselves, what can we do? I think that is the question we need to ask ourselves. And each of us needs to measure, what can I do? What is the level of risk that I am willing to take? Because it's not easy. I feel a privilege, even though I'm not white, to be able to go and protest. But I am a citizen, at least right now. So I'm going to go out after this, I'm going to protest before I do the next thing tonight. And you should as well. But you should look at where your level of safety and comfort is. And you should ask yourself, what more can I do? I know my friends who are academics, they also go protest. But they're also preserving history and ensuring that this government, this administration, doesn't try to erase history. That's why we need the writers. That's why we need the historical societies. That's why we need all of us. And so when you ask, what can I do? I'm going to say, go speak with your elected officials. Push our Representative Watanabe a little bit more. Although I do love what she's doing. just to preface that. Have those difficult conversations that you think, I don't want to talk about politics. Have those discussions about values. How many of you on your birthday would go turn yourselves into a police station? Not one hand. Be not afraid to be bold. That is what I am saying. But what does bold mean to you? That's different for every single person. But be bold. This is not a time to shy away. Some folks say, well, Frank, we're going to give a donation. Thank you. Will you also write a letter? I've spoken to foundations who said, well, we're going to grow our endowment this year because the stock market's doing so well. I said, it's not the right time. Come on, folks. We got to get together. We got to do more. We got to give a little more. So measure where your level of safety, where your level of comfort is, and then notch it up just a little bit more. And also challenge your thinking and those around you. Part of my background is Chinese. I will be very honest. Chinese culture, go make money, go do business, Frank. It was never go be an activist. It was never, Frank, you should go and work for people who are struggling. That was not the case. So culturally, also think to yourself, am I promoting people to do good, or am I promoting people just to live well? Those are two different things. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our panelists. Do we have any questions for the panelists from the audience? Yes, right there in the back. Can you stand up and then speak loudly? We don't have a microphone back there. Thank you. Who wants to answer that?
I'll take a first stab. Hood River, Oregon. You go through the touristic area. You go walking down the main streets. What do you see on the windows? We support our immigrant communities. Bright yellow posters. That's right. There are times that people say you can't just be performative. I say you must be performative and substantive. But that performative has to have substance. So when I walk through the halls of Washington, D.C., and I'm walking by Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's now gone, thank God, and on the side of her wall was the Gulf of America. I ask, why aren't our representatives, our federally elected officials, why don't they have photos of immigrants and refugees who have made America the greatest country on earth? So, yes, so there are ways to do this. There are ways to be performative, to even when people see something, sometimes they question. The other thing too is, what can you do with youth? So many times I've been going to these protests or I've been talking to people and it seems like the hippie generation. There's nothing wrong with that. They're great. If it wasn't for them, I think a lot of these things would not be happening. But we need to involve more young people. So how do you talk to people about values? And I think in more conservative areas, maybe in Hood River, I'm getting a nod, yes, you have to have those difficult conversations on values. But you start off with things that matter to both. The price of gas has gone up. The price of groceries has gone up. I'm with you. It's hard for our families. Yeah, you get that dialogue going, and it's difficult because, you know, there's just some things I don't agree with. And I know you might not agree with me, but our families are struggling. We need more together, not more apart. Mm-hmm. And that's how you start building them. But it's not an easy thing to do, and it takes time. But we've got to do both the performative and have those conversations. Because, folks, the pendulum is not swinging back. As much as people want to think these elections or the next presidential, the pendulum's not swinging back. The pendulum's broken off. The question is, how do we define what we want to be, and what does that new pendulum, if there is one, what does it look like?
Thank you. Do we have another question?
Can I just
go ahead.
add? So most of my talks are to groups of white people, and I'm talking about a bunch of racism. And I always have a very positive response because I'm telling my grandfather's story as a human being. And I am giving other ways for people to connect to him that transcend race. And so a lot of times people are deeply moved because they know what it's like to be the second son. They know what it's like to feel not good enough, to feel like they don't belong. You know, everyone's been to high school. So I would say that a part of it is telling a story like the Yasui families that is at once very Japanese American and also just American. You know, how many white people had a grandpa who ran a store, right? I mean, that's kind of entrepreneurism, America, that's, you know, and so part of it is reminding people. That's how you pop a bubble. They don't even realize the bubble's been popped, but it has. You don't have to use a bulldozer. And frankly, that's what they are doing, right? That's what they're doing. They're just trying to destroy us. And we're trying to say back, we are you. When you destroy me, you destroy yourself. Mm-hmm. And so it's not easy, especially with some of them. But ultimately, we're all just human beings. And that's the message.
Do we have one more question? Yes.
In our schools, we have a lot of kids who are worried about their families, parents, and I want to ask, as a friend or family, how can I help? How can we spread the word to help these people?
This is a great time, I think, to note that the Minoru Yasui Legacy Project has invited many organizations to be here today to share information. And there's some folks at tables here on the side of the room. There are organizations here in Portland who have established, the Portland Immigrant Rights Coalition has established a hotline. They've helped hook people up with lawyers. There are ways that people are taking care of each other through organizations or just through their own neighborhoods and mutual aid. And so I think my recommendation to you, for your fellow students, is one, to look at the organizations that align with your values and the work that they're doing you think matters, and join up with them. They exist. The other thing is to pay attention to each other and act in ways that demonstrate that you care about each other. So democracy requires us to see each other's humanity. All of the oppressions that we've talked about today, historic and contemporary, at their core, what they say is that some of us are human and some of us are not. So exactly like we were just talking about, to ask people to think about what is the humanity that connects us and what are our human rights. It doesn't matter if you're a citizen, it doesn't matter at all. As a human being, we all have rights. And so how do we foster those rights? By fostering our connections, by being good neighbors, by taking care of each other, by reaching out to the kid in the corner who doesn't sit with anybody at lunch, whatever it might be. Those actions build up and make a difference, and then work with other organizations that are advancing policies. You can advocate, you can do all kinds of things. So that's my answer.
So first, let me say thank you for your courage to ask. As a young person, sometimes it's very hard to stand up in a room. Even for some of us who are older, sometimes it's hard for us to stand up in a room. So thank you. I can tell also that you're getting emotional because you care about your students and your fellow classmates. This should not be happening. This should not be happening. And I'm really sorry that it's happening to you. Link up with us afterwards and we can see if we can talk to some of your school and your staff about what we can do. This should not be happening.
Thank you. So to wrap up this part of our program, I just want to know if you have any final comments. The question would be, excuse me, what is at stake from your point of view? And what does Minoru Yasui's legacy mean?
I think I can honor Min's legacy by challenging others, aka white people, to do the work, to accept that Japanese American history is American history, that the stories of suffering and hope, courage and failure, joy and trauma are ours to collectively hold as a nation, and they can be used as signposts to guide us toward a better, more honest tomorrow. This is what is at stake, the tomorrow of this American experiment. Because like World War II, we are not defined only by the best of our actions, nor only the worst, but by what we do next.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, I found a brief quote from a 1933 Oregon Daily Emerald, that's a student newspaper article, that was introducing freshmen in 1933. Min was one of those, and they described Min as a walking encyclopedia. He knows something about everything and plays a swell game of chess besides. And I share that because I think part of his legacy is also just the foundational importance of academic freedom and a liberal arts and sciences education for a functioning democracy. And by all accounts, if you look at Min's achievements as a student, he was involved across the disciplines. He won, public speaking awards. He always got successful verdicts in his mock trials for his clients. And really, I think, coming from the University of Oregon and what he went on to do with his life, he just really epitomized why that liberal arts and sciences education is so critical, and obviously now, as we've been talking about throughout the day, is more important than ever. And so I think that's just one of many legacies that he leaves.
I've been thinking some about a phrase from the Declaration of Independence. As Carrie mentioned, it's the semi-quincentennial of the founding of the United States of America. No one in this crowd has blinders on about the ways that the founding documents didn't necessarily reflect the actions that the founders were taking in all areas, right? And yet at the same time, there is tremendous inspiration in those documents. And in the Declaration of Independence, which a slaveholding ancestor of mine signed, right? They pledged their lives and their money to each other. And one of the things that they were working for was actions that will affect our safety and happiness. And this twin idea of safety and happiness and this opportunity of safety and happiness for everybody, truly, is what's at stake. So Min Yasui's legacy, he put himself in grave physical danger. You do not turn yourself into the police station without understanding that your physical body may be deeply harmed by doing that. So he put his body on the line for safety and happiness. And so that is inspirational to think about. And I think also what is at stake? What is at stake is the opportunity to realize that dream. We have this opportunity as people who can act and take action and do what is right. And so what a wonderful thing to have at stake. All of these things we have to lose, but also what do we have to gain together is what's at stake.
I think there is more than Min Yasui's legacy at stake if we don't do like Min Yasui did. I think the legacy that each one of us has with our families, with our friends, is at risk, it's at peril, and it's being threatened. So when I think about what I do next so that I'm not putting things in such grave danger, I think about my job day to day. What can I do to further civil rights, to further social justice, to decrease the amount of tension and hate? I think now as I'm going to go and protest with my with my signs and with my outfits, I'm going to do that thinking if Min Yasui was here, he wouldn't be saying, I hate. He would be saying, the person next to me might be someone who's conservative, who also doesn't want a king. I'm also going to be thinking, how do I, in the role that I have right now, what can I do to help further human rights the most? How am I going to hold my elected officials accountable? Because I can do that. I don't like to use my title, but I'll use it for that. And how can I, as a leader of an organization, how can all of us who know organizations prompt our organizations to do a little bit more? On January 6th, my organization is going to bring a New York Times bestseller, comedian John Fugelsang, to Portland. Now, John Fugelsang wrote this great book called Separation of Church and Hate. I got a little pushback from people saying, well, Frank, he's very political. He's very to the left. He advises people like James Tallarico in Texas. And I said, woohoo, that's right. We're going to bring him to town. And they said, well, Frank, you're getting political. This administration already has my organization in 2 different documents threatening our 501c3 status. And I think Sandy, who's here with the ACLU, knows that too. And yet, we're going to do this event. There's flyers on the left. But we're going to do it because we've got to do a little bit more, and we've got to bring also a little verve. So while you're fighting for all of this, please also take care of yourselves. Take what you're doing seriously, but not yourselves seriously. Thank you for having us here. Thank you very much. Keep doing the good work. And to the young people here, keep fighting the good fight.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your questions. We do encourage you on the back, in the middle panel, there's a piece of paper and sticky notes to make a commitment. The student artists answered, what would Min do? We're asking you, what will you do? So please take a moment and write out what your commitment is and put it up on the board. Thanks. Thank you all, panels.
right, please join me in once again thanking Sherston and our incredible panelists for such a thoughtful and timely conversation. Your perspectives remind us how important it is to keep listening, to keep learning, and to keep showing up for one another. To close our formal program, we are honored to welcome a special performance. Please join me in welcoming Kurt Ikeda, poet by passion and Director of Programs and Engagement at Go for Broke National Education Center.
Thank you, folks. This has been a wonderful event. Thank you, Oregon Historical Society. Thank you, Minoru Yasui Legacy Project. Thank you, Japanese American Museum of Oregon, for having us. It's been a while since I've been back to Portland, Oregon. There's a lot of friendly faces that I see. And I would be amiss if I didn't recognize the folks who are here with us, who are survivors of America's concentration camps. If you are a survivor of an American concentration camp during World War II, would you please make yourself known by either raising your hand or standing, if you can. Thank you for being here. And folks, if you know these two women, they are survivors. I mean, they really hit that song, folks. I'm going to do 3 pieces for you. One is a poem by Min, one is a reaction to the panel that we just heard a second ago, and the last but not least is something a little bit new. So we'll see how that goes. Why are we here? Min Yasui, 1942. Why are we here was asked of me, and as I looked around to see, I saw a child age about 3. Smiling, she was cute with a dimple. My placid thought, my mood did ripple when she asked that question so simple. Why can't we go home? It's so near. And she asked this with the hint of a tear. Even to a child, liberty is dear. To make the foe to suffer anew is an aim of war, as men should do. But the women and children, too, why must we stay in this awful place? I dare not look on her innocent face to say that was because of our race. When men wage war, kindness departs out of their souls, and in their hearts they awaken hatred with brutal arts. Why are we here? The little girl asked. Officials said, army, and in smugness basked, but we want real motives, now unmasked, and are we the people, though not admitted, punished for crimes by others committed to live as free men? Are we permitted? Why are we here? Why are we alone in prison through no fault of our own, no one else's sin to atone? It must not be so that we might be deprived of our citizens' right to aid in the triumph of freedom's fight. Thank you. So that wasn't me, that was all Min. So everything you thought was fantastic, that was all him, right? You'll be hearing some callbacks to Min's poem in my last piece, but for now, I wanted to actually bring a small practice that I learned in Portland. I was working at the Japanese American Museum of Oregon. I had the pleasure of working with some of these wonderful people here. This is truly a community I like to call my own. And I learned a very special practice here in Oregon, how art can always be a response. And I'm going to be sharing with you something that a mentor of mine, Chisawa Hata, and as a result, a friend of mine, Ken Yoshikawa, yes, a friend of mine, Ken Yoshikawa, taught me. I will be presenting to you a poem I just wrote on the spot in response to the panel we just had. Please don't take this one too seriously. It's supposed to be giving you some laughs along the way. Contested narratives in poetry. Histories, politics, community action. Eliza, Kevin, Erica, Frank, thank you. And while you're fighting for all of this, please take care of yourself. Do like Min did. Who will go get arrested on their birthday? Like a candle blown out. Take a breath and blow dreams into bubbles. I wish to be a citizen. At least I am for now. The pendulum is not swinging back, not swinging back, not swinging back, at least for now. Now, unlock the safe, victims disappearing off the streets. No one knew where Moss was, where secret prisons, Minidoka, unsanitized conditions. We must not be imprisoned by cozy histories, sanitized mumbles. We live in bubbles. White society sits while babies of colors cry, insist that naysayers say so. Bill NATO had to prove that he was better, good, better, bested by narratives of now, bear witness to how history is a difficult conversation. Bookmarks, creased pages, melt ice agents by being bold. We owe that to our ancestors. And you now know that U of O owns its history, honoring memories, honorary degrees of separation, bridging communities across generations. They ask you, who brought you here? What will you bring to your communities? This line really hit me. What to do when the parents are taken, when only the kids remain. That's the pendulum. Bring them back. Bring them back. Bring them back. Sorry for bursting your bubble, but that is the message. Thank you. You know, they say history, Mark Twain, right? History doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. But I actually believe, especially in this amount of time, as we look at history, it's our responsibility to remix history, right? A remix is something that is completely and brand new. And as that is the case, I will be presenting to you a remix of various Min Yasui poetry. There is a huge collection of Min Yasui poetry that's accessible both here in Oregon, also in Colorado. If I hadn't said it earlier, folks, I dedicate this one especially to the two folks I see in front of me. I used to serve as the Chief of Interpretation, the Chief Park Ranger at Minidoka National Historic Site. I had the privilege of interpreting a history that was not of my own family's. My family's history in Texas, Crystal City, was bulldozed over. There is now a school there. So 8 years ago, I ensured that my family's history, while bulldozed, that no other child will have to feel the same feeling that I felt, that their grandparents' stories are gone. And those stories are still kept alive in places like Minidoka National Historic Site, Idaho, places like Oregon Historical Society, and of course, places like Japanese American Museum of Oregon. This poem goes out to you all. This poem is called Cross-Examination. This poem is called Cross-Examination. State of Our Nation versus Yasui. Plaintiff, Minoru Yasui. One across, he says, I have never and will never voluntarily relinquish my American citizenship. The decision of this honorable court to the contrary notwithstanding, I am an American non-alien. Noun, opposite of an American citizen, non-alien, nonsense. Nonetheless, they also persisted and insist now how they, them, we should not exist. Insist that identities like status, like rights, can be relinquished, or, as was then, is now, extinguished. 2, across. The district court rules that the act was unconstitutional as applied to American citizens, but still he is guilty. Min fought the curfew that was unconstitutional, but still he is guilty. Why? The hint? See line 1. 3, across, 1942, Min screams into a void in Multnomah County, condemned to loneliness, a cesspool of frustration, isolated and removed from the rest of the nation. Min was a really good poet, by the way, folks. Confinement. Solitary confinement, 9 months, but a poet with a pen is never alone. You cannot keep the truth penned in from him, so Min speaks for across. This is someone's notion of national defense. To keep us penned behind that damned fence. Fences around El Paso, Texas. Fences around Los Angeles, California. Fences around Tacoma, Washington. So rest your defensiveness, America. Guilty by association to this administration, 5 across. Why are we here? The little girl asked. I dare not look on her innocent face to say that was because of our race. Why are we here? The poet asked. And I dare you to look into Min's face to say that was because of your faith in the rule of law to seek justice for all, as he did. 6 down, 3 steps forward and 3 steps back, to and fro on an endless track. America, how many times around will we step around these realities, carefully crafted fallacies at our feet? We walk like broken glass. Break the glass. This is the emergency. Breaking ice to peaches requires a ceaseless racket. No calm, no justice, no peace. They can't keep us all 7 down, not yet. When I ask, why am I here, I can answer with no trace of fear. I'll let my country do no wrong, and I'll be true to this freedom's song. Free them all. Our children, our neighbors, our huddled masses yearning to breathe. Free Lady Liberty smiles 8 down. On and though gallant our nation fights for freedom and a world peace pact, we cannot ignore the sacred fact that all human rights are equal rights. Right now, never again is now. 9 down. I have faith that right must prevail, and in this endeavor I cannot fail. Justice is a practice. Never give up, and never lay 10 down. I have never and will never voluntarily relinquish my American citizenship. The decision of this honorable court to the contrary notwithstanding, I am an American citizen. Today, what would you do, Min? Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I encourage you all to continue to process this wonderful, wonderful moment and experience through your own art, as we all truly are, just like Min was, poets in our own right. Thank you so much for having me, folks, and I'll be giving it back to our wonderful host. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. That was powerful, inspiring, uplifting, and I'm at a loss for words. We are so deeply grateful to the Oregon Historical Society for hosting us and for sharing the Yasui family and American Story exhibit with our community. I also want to extend our sincere thanks to Governor Brown, to our keynote speaker, Kirsten Lyon, to Peggy Nagai, and all of today's panelists and speakers for sharing their time, their insight, and their wisdom with us. Following the program, we invite you to join Yasui family members and OHS Curator of Exhibitions, Megan Lollier-Barron, for informal tours and conversation. It is now my pleasure to welcome Barbara Yasui, MYLP Education Committee Lead and retired educator, and Megan Lollier-Brown, Curator of Exhibitions at OHS.
Hello. Whoa, that was loud. Back a little. I'm Barbara Yasui. I am a member of the Minoru Yasui Legacy Project Committee. I'm also the daughter of Homer and Miyuki Yasui, who lived for many, many, many years in Portland, here in Portland, and I am the niece of Min Yasui. So that's where I come from. I also would like to just thank so much Oregon Historical Society, the Japanese American Museum of Oregon, and the University of Oregon for being keepers of not only the Yasui family story, but the keepers of the Japanese American story and the American story. So they've done a great job. And my father, Homer, who died in 2023 at age 98, believed in passing it on. That was one of his mantras. And so the Oregon Historical Society, the Japanese American Museum of Oregon, and University of Oregon are all doing what he wanted, which is passing it on. I also really want to recognize Chani and Penn. Penn is the young man who asked the question. They are 4th and 5th generation Yasui family members who are keeping it going. And I just want to say how grateful I am that Chani and Penn are here today, and I'm hoping that many other Yonsei and Gosei Yasuis will do the same thing. So the question was, what would Min do? And I feel like this is a rhetorical question because we all know what Min would do. He probably wouldn't be sitting here. He'd be down, at the No Kings March, probably at the front of the line, and he'd be pounding on the podium if you've ever seen recordings of his videos. And he would be writing letters, and he would be making speeches, and in general, he would be raising hell. And so if we want to ask what would Min do, we have to take that and do it ourselves. And Erica mentioned, she sort of encouraged, I think you said white people, I think that's what you said, to get out and do something, take action. So I agree wholeheartedly with what she had to say, but I also want to encourage people of Japanese ancestry to take action. So I don't know how many of you have seen this poster. There's a bunch of them over on that table there. Those of you, there may be many of you actually who recognize this title that says Instructions to All Persons of Japanese Ancestry. Do you remember where that came from? That was what was posted on the streets of Portland and Hood River after President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066. It was instructions to all persons of Japanese ancestry requiring them to gather on a date, usually only a week to 10 days after this was posted, with only with what they could carry, to forcibly be removed from their homes and taken to incarceration camps, temporary assembly centers. In Portland, it was at the Pacific International Livestock Exhibition Center. That's where they were taken. But all over the West Coast, taken to temporary assembly centers and ultimately to concentration camps in the interior of the United States. So what this is an updated version of Instructions to All Persons of Japanese Ancestry. And what this is saying, this was produced by Tsuru for Solidarity. You've heard that organization several times. There's Tsuru members here in Portland. Raise your hands, please. And I want you to go talk to them. If you are a person of Japanese ancestry and you want to get involved, go talk to those Tsuru people. But Tsuru for Solidarity redid this poster. And this is a call to action to people of Japanese ancestry, not to just sit idly by as we watch what is happening today to immigrants and to activists and to white people who are out there protesting. It's a call to action to do something, to stand up and to be the allies that we did not have in 1942. So in closing, I just want to say, remember what Uncle Min said, never give up.
That's incredibly hard to follow. Everybody has been so well spoken for this entire presentation. I think the thing that I wanted to share with all of you in curating this exhibition, the Yasui Family, An American Story, was that this story is really centered around a family, but also around a community, and how communities of people really make change in the world, not just in Hood River, not just in Oregon, not just in the United States, but globally. And I think that sometimes we read about people in exhibitions and we think of them as mythical figures, but they're really ordinary people making choices every single day that impacts their communities. So I wanted to welcome you all to the exhibition if you haven't had a chance to do that. I know other family members will be in the space, but I hope you're able to take away a lot of the messaging that we had in the exhibition. Thank you.
Chani says I get to say thank you. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. Thank you, Chani, Minoru Yasui Legacy Project, all the amazing organizations with tables. The Yasui Family, An American Story is right here to my left. The museum is open until 5 o'clock. Come spend time today, come back anytime, and just everyone, thank you very much for being here today and sharing this time.
Together, keep breaking me in, and this is how we will end, whether you and me bend. Shouldn't be so complicated. Just touch me and then just touch me again. Can you help me? I'm bent, sick and scared that I'm never getting put back together. You're breaking me in, and this is how we will end, whether you and me be.
Doctors have come from distant cities just to see me. Stand over my bed, disbelieving what they're seeing. They say I must be one of the wonders of God's own creation. And as far as they see, they can offer no explanation.